This is good.
Welcome, everybody. Today we have our budget hearing for September 23rd, 2014 for the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education. And I would like to start by requesting a roll call, please.
I'm here. Mark Barry.
Present.
Leanne Charlotte. Julie Gottschall.
Present.
Richard Haig. Chris Fletchinger. Here. Jen Rosen.
Present.
Susan Wright.
Present.
5 out of 7. We have a quorum. We're good. We'll start. Starting with item 2, statement of purpose of the budget hearing. The purpose of the meeting is to allow the public to comment on the proposed 2014-2015 school budget. People desiring to speak should be recognized by the president, state their name and address, then make comment. Written comment may be handed to the president. So, I think what we're going to do is invite comment. We can invite comment now if anybody wants to comment prior to a presentation. Or we'll go right into our budget presentation and then offer the opportunity to offer comments from the audience or the board afterwards. So if nobody wants to comment prior, I'm going to hand it off to Jay and Jean, who will run us through the budget, which we've already seen 2 times prior, I believe. Is it 2?
Just once.
Just once?
Oh, but we went over questions last week, so that has been twice.
Yep. And now the difference, I guess, is that you have added actual
Results from the auditor from last fiscal year. So just to start off, this is the budget for next year. You've seen this already. There have been a few small changes since the tentative budget, but the overall bottom line has not changed. And then in the presentations, I've gone back and filled in the actuals that I got from our auditors. So bottom line, our budget is balanced. We have approximately $15.5 million in both operating revenues and expenditures, and then $1.1 million in debt service. To go over revenue assumptions, we are assuming the entire 2013 property tax levy as used in revenue for next fiscal year and a 99.5% collection rate. The operating levy is up 7% and the total levy is up 16% versus the prior year. This increase is caused by, it's versus a one-time 2012 abatement, so we reduced taxes in 2012 significantly, so that's why we're seeing an increase. But this current levy is still 7% below our 2011 levy, so we're seeing a net decrease. And then I moved the majority of general state aid out of the ed fund to balance all the funds, and our fees are increasing slightly because things that had been booked to an activity account prior to this year are being reflected on our district books going forward. Here's just some historical perspective. You can see our revenues from the 2011 levy or the 2013 fiscal year reduced significantly in 2014 fiscal year due to the abatement, and now we're going back up to a more sustainable level, but we're still net below where we were 2 years ago. And then our expenditures are increasing slightly, 2% a year. This is the one-time debt service restructuring that we did last year, which reduced our fund balance on a one-time basis. This black line represents our reserves. So we were up around $15 million last year. We used $5 million to restructure our debt, and we're down about $10 million. And because we have a balanced budget, that's going to remain flat for next fiscal year.
And Jay, if I could, I want to point out on that prior slide that the last set of bars of columns matched head to head. A little different than in the past where the way we're budgeting now with a much sharper pencil with minimizing the contingencies that we include in our budget.
We're not budgeting a surplus, we're budgeting flat. Thank you for that. So revenue versus prior year. Again, this is the budget versus last year's actuals. You can see we're up about 5% in total operating revenue and 12% in total revenue. We did not levy debt service last year, which accounts for the big increase. Just a quick look at our revenue. 90% of our revenue is from local property taxes. We receive very little federal money. About 5% of our revenue comes from state sources, general state aid, and a lot of special ed reimbursement. And then other local sources are fees, mostly just for students. Some of our
That 90% number has been consistent for years and years, right?
Yes, and it reflects, and it's also representative of many of the districts in this area. So that's a pretty normal figure. We have increased our staffing by a little over 3 FTE. This was approved by the board last spring. We have some additional enrichment club stipends for additional activities for students. Our contract rollover included a 3% salary increase, and we saw a net insurance premium decrease of 3% due to our good experience, health experience last year. And then our capital projects, where we've reduced putting on hold until we have our architect on board and can look at long-term capital planning. We did get the opportunity to purchase some land this year near the elementary school, and that's pretty much going to be our capital budget for the year. And then here is just in tabular form, our net expenditures budget versus last year's actuals, a net increase of 2%, driven mostly by salaries, offset by a decrease in our benefits.
Can you just pause on that one for a little bit? I just want to make sure that I understand it. So those are audited numbers, and that's changed since the last time, because I think last meeting, and you guys just said this, but I'll just repeat it. Last meeting we were talking about budgeted numbers.
Correct.
13
We're
through
comparing
14.
versus prior year budget because we didn't have the actual numbers.
And now we have the actuals. And then the budget number that we're approving today is the one in the left-hand column.
Correct.
And that shows a 2% increase in the education fund over last year's actuals.
Correct.
Okay.
What drives the IMRF column, that 4% increase?
That column, IMRF and Social Security Fund, is all of the retirement benefits for our employees, so it's really a percentage of salary. So it's salary.
The 4% is a consistent number year after year after year? I'm interested in what drives the increase.
The increase is driven by increases in salary, primarily, because Social Security and Medicare, our portion of payroll taxes is a fixed percentage of salary. IMRF contribution to pensions is also more or less a fixed percentage of salary. That percentage changes based on the funding of the
It's like the
pension.
employer portion of Social Security.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you see an increase in your salaries, generally you see an increase in your IMRF.
So it's not connected to an actual report?
An actuarial report?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
It is only in the sense that IMRF changes your funding rate annually based on their actuarial report.
Okay, that's what it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but they amortize any differences in need over 30 years. So generally, it's pretty small. It's not a large impact annually. And again, looking at last year's budget, this does not include the one-time debt payment. So that was a source of funds just taken out of reserves and not considered an expense.
If I recall directly, been a little bit of a financial historian here, going back probably 10 years, that's the least, 2% is probably the least amount of increase that I remember seeing in probably the last 10 years.
So this presumes that what we will levy when we do the levy in another couple of months will match this 16.
No, what we levied last year and are collecting this year is the
Okay.
revenue budget
And the
for this
levy,
fiscal year.
so I knew I was going to get that wrong. So the levy that we have already done last year will cover the 16.6.
Correct. And this did cover these expenditures. So the revenue slide that you saw earlier
Prior.
reflected last year's levy, and that's the revenue for this coming fiscal year, or this current fiscal year that we're in.
Jay, can you throw some dates so people understand? levy collection and expenditure,
Sure.
you know, and use years.
In Illinois, property taxes are paid in 1 year in arrears. So the fiscal year 2013 levy, based on your property value in fiscal year 2013, is collected in 2014.
In June and September.
In June and September. So you levy it in 2013 based on what your property value was on January 1st of 2013. And then or 2014, and then you collect it, and it's collected the following year. And so we've chosen to, because we have a healthy reserve balance, we're able to defer that revenue, if you will, from June and not use it until the following fiscal year.
Your question?
Do I need to go through that again, or is
No,
it?
I don't.
That's good. People at home might be sending.
Yeah, it's,
emails.
well, we have the budget, we have the levy hearing in December, so you can come back or tune in for that, and there'll be another explanation.
So to make sure everybody understands, the levy hearing that we're gonna have, that is due by December, is going to be for the 2015 tax bill and will be expended by the school in 2016,
Yes,
16, 17.
correct. So there's a substantial lag in the revenues. And then this is just how our how our expenditures are used, or how they break out. 69% of our total budget is salaries and benefits. If you just look at operating budget, taking debt service out, it would be 75%. 13% is purchase services, 6% is supplies, fairly small capital expenditures, as I stated earlier, and then 11% is tuition payments for special education students and debt service. And looking at it in terms that maybe people understand a little bit easier, 2/3 of the money is, two-thirds of every tax dollar we receive is spent directly on students, on teaching, transporting, supervising students. An additional 5% is used for library, staff training, and curricular development. About 10% goes to maintaining our facilities. 11% goes to central services and administration, and then 7 cents goes to debt service.
Can I pause a question? Is this handout available to the audience if they want it?
I don't think this went in the board, did it go in the board packet?
I
did not.
Then we'll make sure it's posted
That's
tomorrow.
what I want to say. So if anybody wanted to look in more detail or say look more closely at these numbers, we'll put it on the web.
Absolutely. And the full budget is already on the web in detail.
Yep.
And then just looking at fund balance projections, again, this fund balance, this projected fund balance is based on our audited actual fund balance from last year, so this is an accurate number. And it's flat from year to year. So our fund balance, as I said, it's $9.5 million, which represents, our operating fund balance represents 62% of this year's expenditure budget.
So almost 8 months worth of expenditures.
Any other questions?
Any questions from the board or comments or concerns that they want to raise?
Jay, we talk about the reserve. Where's the reserve indicated there? Is it indicated there?
The amount of the reserve is in this column.
And then,
The 9.5?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is what I'm projecting for the ending reserve balance at the end of next fiscal year, which is basically, I know what the starting fund balance is because I now have the audited numbers from last fiscal year, and then I'm projecting pretty much a net zero change. I'm projecting to increase $9,000. So that
So-
will be my net fund balance at the end of the year.
Okay, so ending fund balance and reserve are sort of synonymous terms?
Interchangeable.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
And that, among just that, we had a discussion about this last time, exceeds our maximum in our policy. But we decided, I think, to correct me if I'm not saying this properly, but we decided that we're going to undertake a study to determine exactly how we might ultimately use that fund balance, whether it's the middle school or other items, before we begin to touch it in any significant way.
And our current policy says between 30 and 50%,
Right, that's 62.
and that's 62.
Right.
Fund balance would be kind of the accounting or technical term. Reserve is just what we call it. But our reserves or our fund balance by fund can be restricted. So our IMRF fund balance, we can't really spend on anything we want. It has to be spent only on pension benefits. So we don't really have $9.5 million to spend. It's close to that. Mostly our education and O&M fund balances can be used for more general things.
Working cash can be moved, can it?
Working cash can be moved to any other fund. And we discussed this a little bit last time.
It's a big conversation.
But it's not. You can look at the bottom line number, and that is a pretty good indication of the fiscal health. But you can't necessarily, if it's in a fund that's restricted, use that money for general purposes.
So basically, it's safer to say it's $9 million, since we cannot touch IRMAF.
Right, and then transportation can only be used for transportation. So
Sure.
if we wanted to change how we fund transportation, we could do that, but we can't use that money to renovate a building, for example.
And then I'm going to throw another thing in the loop. During Jay's financial report this evening, he is going to be sharing the impact of future possible legislation that's really starting to rock and roll that will greatly impact our projections and our fund balance. So he's going to give us some introduction to it tonight so you can chew on it, and then we'll be talking about it more in relation to our projections next month.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board?
Nope. Thanks, Jay.
Jay, that was great. I'd like to offer the opportunity to anybody in the audience, from the community, from the schools, anybody at all would like to comment on this year's budget, please do so. Feel free. And if not, we can adjourn our budget hearing at 7:05. May I have a motion to adjourn at 7:05 p.m., please?
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned from the budget hearing, and we can move right into our regular meeting for the evening. Switching over my computer here. All right. So, welcome again. Long time no see. Everybody to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for September 23rd. Christine, can we please have a roll call?
Mark Berry,
Present.
Leanne Charlo, Julie Gottschall,
Present.
Richard Haig,
Present.
Chris Fetchinger present, Jen Rosen,
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present.
Okay, that's great. We have 6 out of 7. We have a quorum. We can begin. And we're going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then, as we always do, and I don't think the audience has changed at all, we offer the opportunity for public comment before and after every meeting. If anybody would like to address the board, please feel free. And also remind you that we will offer that opportunity again at the end of the meeting, so if something interests you throughout the meeting and you'd like to comment on it, please feel free to do that at the end of the meeting as well. And don't hesitate, if somebody's watching at home, to reach out to us. All of our email addresses are on the website, and bring your concerns to us, please. The first thing we're going to do, and that's, are you going to be doing that, number 5?
Actually, we're going to turn over the introduction of new staff members to our principals.
So number 5, introduction of new staff members at both buildings, right?
We are delighted to have Margaret St. Clair and Nate Blackmer introduce most of our new teaching staff.
Well, good evening, everybody. We feel like proud parents here, I think. I have almost a pledge class full of new staff, and I guess that makes me the house mom or the pledge master or something like that. But I was really happy to be part of the hiring process last spring and really had a hand in hiring all of our new staff this year, and we are completely thrilled with each and every one of them. We've been in everybody's classrooms. We've started evaluation with our new staff, and we're just really thrilled that they're all here. So I'm going to introduce them in order of kind of grade level and their assignments. So first, Kate Whitehead is our new early childhood teacher. They have 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in their classroom. And it's like heaven on earth in there, I can tell you. Nell Ireland is our new kindergarten teacher. And Nell was with us last year as an assistant, and we're really happy that she's with us this year as a kindergarten teacher. Erin Peckler, who couldn't be here this evening, is also a new kindergarten teacher. She comes to us with over 5 years of experience teaching kindergarten. Jacqueline Rote is a first grade teacher who is not with us this evening either, but she taught in Lake Forest most recently for a couple of years. Nicole King, our new 2nd grade teacher. We're thrilled Nicole is here. She was with us last year as an assistant as well. Amanda Etter, 3rd grade teacher, and she has already endeared all of our kids right to her heart. They love Miss Etter. Sarah Magsino is not here with us today, 4th and 5th grade multi-age. She was a student teacher at Lake Bluff Elementary last year. Sally Verdon, kindergarten special education. She worked at the school as a substitute in lots of roles last year, and seems like she's been on staff for a long time, so we're happy to have her. Brandy Capaccio is our new ELL teacher, and she has experience teaching 5th grade, and now she joins our other ELL instructor at Lake Bluff Elementary. Erica Hansen's our new social worker. She has been everywhere and done everything in our school so far this year. So I don't know what we've done without her up till now. Buffy Stauffer, you might recognize. Buffy was on staff for lots of years. I know she knows all of you. We are so thrilled she's back. She's in kind of a new role in enrichment, working with staff and students. Fred Cook, our music teacher. Fred is well known in the community, both as a parent and as a teacher in Lake Forest. Fred and I worked together. We're not going to count how many years ago in Lake Forest. So, Katie Marson is our new art and drama teacher. Katie has taught art in other districts as well, and she comes to us. She drives in from Elmhurst, and she's part-time with us. So we're really happy to have her. So thank you to Lake Bluff Elementary.
How many total new people do you have in your building? How many total new people do you have in your building?
13.
My list is a bit shorter. a lot shorter, though I'm no less thrilled to introduce our new staff at the middle school. So I'll start with Corinne Horner. Corinne is our 6th and 7th grade Spanish teacher. And then Dave Pauke is teaching 6th grade social studies. Both are off to a great start. We're thrilled to have them.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Just to welcome everybody, all the new guys. If some of you are familiar faces, some of you have been in our buildings and for various reasons, but this is a great district. The community supports education in a huge way. I hope you'll stay forever and ever. Your administrators are wonderful people. They work so hard to make your buildings incredible places, and this board will work very hard to make education a priority in our town as well. So welcome and thank you, and work hard. We appreciate you being here.
And with that, I'm recommending to the board that our new teachers are dismissed to go home and get their work done. So we want to thank all of you for taking time out to come and meet our board this evening.
Thank you.
Welcome, thanks. So we're going to move into our elementary and middle school reports and start with Margaret St. Clair from the elementary school and do our elementary report.
Well, good evening again. We've had a busy few weeks at Lake Bluff Elementary School. We got off to a great start and reported out on that last month, but this month we've had a couple of events where we got to bring in a lot of parents from the community. The first one was our curriculum night, which was on September 11th. And we had a full house. We had most parents attending and a great turnout. We continued with the plan, what they did last year, which was we offered 2 sessions of each teacher's classroom so that if parents have more than one child in the school, they could get to different teachers, and that seemed to work out well. And then they joined us in the gym for a large presentation where several of us shared some information with them. And then we closed with our 5th grade parents had a laptop presentation by Laurie Brown that kind of explained just the use of laptops, and the parents signed off on the agreement so that the kids can bring their laptops home in 5th grade. We also had a kindergarten ice cream social September 16th, and that was just a great event. Again, really well attended. It was a gorgeous night, and so that was in the evening from 6 to 7. The kids were happy. They got to play outside. There were hula hoops and just lots of parents and lots of kids. So it was a really fun, joyful event. We saw a lot of parents connecting with each other. Really good opportunity for parents that are new to the school, and that was run by our PTO, and it was really well attended. Recently, our staff has been participating in some professional development, kindergarten through 5th grade. Just today finished up having full days to work with a consultant from our new writing series, Lucy Calkins' units of study for writing, and a consultant came out and worked a full day with the grade levels, and it really gave teachers a great opportunity to get their hands into that and to plan and to ask questions. Now that they've started working with it a little bit in their classrooms, it's really nice to have that support and follow-up. So Kelly Bay organized that and was in attendance. I got to go to one partial day, so it was really valuable for teachers. Also, parents have given a lot of positive feedback about the school messenger system that we're using to communicate out, both through text message and email, and we haven't used voicemail, but anytime something's happening, either we're sending reminders or we need to give an update on some news and we need to do it quickly. That's been our method, and we've gotten a ton of positive feedback both at the middle school and elementary school. Today we had administrative team. We were talking as administrators about our evaluation process. As I kind of was mentioning, I have 13 new staff, and we got to talking about how much time that's taking for administrators. The state has, changed things up a little bit as far as what that looks like for school districts, and we just decided to turn it into a math word problem that Dr. Sophie asked us to kind of share with you about what our jobs are and how much, what we're doing every day. So we have 3 cycles of teacher evaluation. The first one is a tenured teacher who would either be on a goal-setting year or on an observation year. And so we were trying to kind of figure out how many hours per teacher does that take. Teachers that are on goal setting, it's about 5 hours per year per teacher. And so we would sit down with the teachers to work with them to help them set their goals. And then we have checkups throughout the year, and then a final conference at the end of the year. The other cycle that the teachers are on, they alternate years, is an observation year where they have formal observations and informal observations, and one of their administrators is responsible for doing those observations. We figured it out for each teacher, it takes about 15 hours per year to complete that cycle. And then for a non-tenured teacher, of which you see we have a lot at Great Bluff Elementary School, we do feel it's important, and the state feels it's important that we see them more than one time per year. And so we see them for 2 formal observations and 1 informal observation. It's about, we figured, over 20 hours per teacher per year. And the reason for that is because we have a pre-conference, we do the observation, there's a lot of note-taking, a lot of preparation on our part to have a post-conference, and then you have a post-conference which often lasts between 1 and 2 hours. So the grand total, I have 4 tenured teachers I'm observing, I have 16 non-tenured, and I have 8 on goal setting. The grand total comes out to about 11 40-hour work weeks. 400 hours of time.
Teacher evaluation.
So, and then Tracy Rorick, our assistant principal, she has 7 non-tenured teachers. She has 10 tenured teachers. She has 8 teachers on goal setting, and then she also evaluates our assistants. So that takes about 3 hours each. So her total is about 8 40-hour work weeks. So when we were really putting it together at admin team, we thought, okay, well it's a good.
And you said yours is 11?
About 11.
And how many weeks in the school year?
36, I think. So I think and Nate's going to share a little bit.
Summer too, but
And Nate will share with his too. So we just felt like as we were pondering it ourselves that, Dr. Sophie said that would be a really good piece of information to share because things have shifted a little bit and we do feel like, wow, we're doing this a lot. And when we kind of started tallying it up, I don't know if we feel better or worse, but thought I would share that with you. So.
And this is a really good example of an unfunded mandate. We're going to be talking a lot about unfunded mandates, and I think, Jay will ask really good business questions, and so he asked me, well, talk about a comparison between the old way and the new way. And I think I know myself, because I've been evaluated for quite some time, we figured it was about 2/3 as much time as we used to spend.
So if you're doing 11 weeks of observations now, it would have been
about 2/3 or 1/3 of that before.
So in prior years, it was roughly 1/3 of what you're doing now.
Exactly.
Because I remember
2-3 years ago.
I taught in the late 1800s, but at that time, I thought my principal was in my classroom like every other day, and maybe it was just me. I don't know.
Yeah, John, that usually was not the case back then.
We do then, we're in classrooms just to be in classrooms, and that's, really
That's-
important
that's
time. But these are
informal.
very structured,
Okay.
formal.
so somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of your time is spent in evaluations
Correct.
during the school year.
Right.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
And
Yeah,
that's,
that does make sense.
Informal evaluation?
Well, it's a little unsustainable, but
Well, I think unsustainable is a great word for it.
Well, keeping in mind that the school code says that principals need to be educational leaders over 50% of their day. Well, when you're doing teacher observations, that's an educational leader. But I think it's really important. There's 2 administrators in that building. Nate's going to talk about his caseload. And on top of being district office administrators, which district office administrators typically do not evaluate. Kevin evaluates, how many people do you have on your caseload? Okay, so he has 6, a range of tenured and non-tenured. I have 2 tenured teachers I'm evaluating and about 12 goal plans, and then I evaluate all 6 administrators.
What about department chairs? Do they evaluate?
We don't have
we don't
those.
have department
have
chairs
those.
at elementary, so we'll let Nate speak to this as well.
Thank you, Margaret. With each of the principal reports, we're going to try to think of some interesting facts, either about our jobs or about curriculum, to share so that you can have a comparison between the schools too.
Good evening. Should we continue on with the evaluation? Okay, we'll go with that, and then we'll get to the fun stuff. So obviously, Lake Bluff Middle School's a bit smaller. I have at this point 12 non-tenured teachers. That leaves 11 tenured teachers who are on the evaluation cycle this year, and then 13 tenured teachers who are on the goal track this year. If you extrapolate that out and do the math, that's closer to 9 weeks, assuming the 40-hour work week worth of evaluation in my building. That doesn't include those that Jean's helping with in terms of goal setting, and Kevin's also doing some of the special ed staff in the building. So that's minus those folks. That being said, it's one of the highlights of the job, I think, to get into the classroom and watch teachers doing what they do and have the opportunity to talk in advance and then process afterwards. But it is certainly a large part of the job, and until today I had no idea exactly how large, so now we know. Now we know.
And I will share one of the comments that Nate made, because all of us, after we started adding up, and then we said, no wonder we're all so tired in February, and he said, and cranky. We're all cranky in February.
And this has to be done by?
We have deadlines to meet, because if teachers need to be released, they need to be released 90 days prior to the end of the school year.
Wow. So 2 questions. Do you, talking to your peers in the industry, does this sound like similar, do you think these are similar numbers, hours that other schools are putting in, if they're following the rules the way we do?
Absolutely, if they're following the rules.
Yeah.
I think many districts are looking for alternatives. Some districts are hiring just evaluators, retired people to come in and help evaluate. That's why high schools are using their department chairs. They help with the evaluation load. You're starting to see more of the load going to assistant principals, sharing with that. And one of the models that I think is interesting for the future, it has not been approved for evaluation in the state of Illinois, is peer review. And if peers were allowed to, tenured teachers that had excellent ratings, if they were allowed to evaluate each other, sometimes those are the best evaluations, but in the state of Illinois, they don't count. So we just thought, because we're always talking about unfunded mandates, and we live with them so much that we don't take them into account. So this is a really good example.
Do we think the State Board of Education has a sense for the burden they've placed on the districts?
I will share very openly that the owner of this bill, the writer of this bill, was one of the legislators in my former district, and I shared with her at the time, directly to her, and we all did. And I think their point, which is a good one, is it really is a valuable dialogue with teachers, and it can change instruction, and it also can help us in the situation where we need to remediate a teacher out. But it had so many unintended consequences that you're seeing more and more, and the research is starting to prove that less and less people are going into administration. So it's important to keep note of all these unfunded mandates. So we'll talk more about those as we go too.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm curious.
Along similar lines, I thought I would also mention, while it doesn't count toward the evaluation plan, we do allow for peer observation within our district. And in fact, that was something the staff, I think both buildings, identified as a really important and valuable thing to continue to do. So much so that we put some mechanisms in place to encourage teachers to do that. Just some fun kind of things at faculty meetings. They draw each other's names, and we have the advantage at the middle school of having plan time that occurs while other teachers are teaching. So it would allow a teacher to get into a room without having the need for a sub to cover them in order to visit. So it makes it a little bit easier in the middle school, but certainly something that continues to be a high priority for us, and the teachers have found great value in it. It's always enjoyable to hear them sharing and celebrating, as we do at the beginning of each faculty meeting, by talking about some of the things that they learned or saw or did and implemented in their classroom simply because they saw it in another room. So it's been a nice learning experience for us. So moving away from evaluation for a little while, curriculum nights. Ours were on September 3rd and 4th, and they were both extremely well attended. Our 6th grade curriculum night was on the 3rd, and then we do 7th and 8th on the following night, and that was the 4th. Our outdoor education, Lake Bluff Education Parent Informational Meeting occurred also that evening, half hour before everything else started. So all three were really just very well attended. Lots of folks who were excited, I think, to see each other and to have their students back in school. And eventually I started turning off the lights, and we all headed out together long after our meeting was over. But it was nice to catch up with the folks that I hadn't seen in a long time. So that was great. We have outdoor ed and Lake Bluff Ed beginning tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. The forecast is exceptional for those 3 days. We're very excited about that. Well, right, we do. We always plan it that way. So I'll be taking off with the 7th grade students and many of our 7th grade and fine arts staff members to East Troy, Wisconsin tomorrow morning for the outdoor ed portion. We have a staff who will be running the Lake Bluff ed portion. So as a reminder to our Lake Bluff community, if they happen to see brightly colored pencil cases with a label on the outside around town, those are the geocaching stations that they're going to see just during the school day. They're clearly labeled and identify that they're part of a school project. But if they happen, and they will not be put on any private property, but on the between the sidewalk and the roads and in front of some of our other historic landmarks. So those are things to keep an eye out for tomorrow and Friday in Lake Bluff, but the 3 full days in East Troy, Wisconsin. Coming up next week on Wednesday, October 1st, we'll have our parent informational meeting for the 8th grade trip, which is the Washington, D.C. trip. That trip takes place February 18th, 19th, and 20th, so we'll be sharing more information with parents at that time and also showing the slideshow from years past so they can get a little better feel for the trip. We'll have representatives from Hemisphere Educational Travel there. They're the tour company that helps us put that trip together, so they'll be on hand to help answer questions as well. Coming up on October 9th and 10th are the student-led parent-teacher student conferences. Now, we had the opportunity to present to all of our parents during curriculum night some of the changes that are coming to conferences. Those have been very well received, and I've received a lot of positive feedback about the goal-setting activities that are occurring during advisory as part of that conference preparation. It'll be revisited, of course, during the winter conferences, so that's something to look forward to. And also coming up on Friday night, October 10th, is the Lake Forest High School Band Night. This is an opportunity for our middle school bands, both at Deer Path and Lake Bluff, to join the Lake Forest High School Band at halftime and get out and do a little halftime performance during the home football game. And it's certainly a neat opportunity for all of our band students to experience what it's like to be in a marching band. So that's something to look forward to. And that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. All right, we're going to move right along and go to Ann Stewart with our PTO report.
Hello, everyone. As you can imagine, the PTO has started off the year being quite busy. It's always the most busy time of the year going through October, believe it or not. We started off the year with the Back to School Splash on August 24th. 475 people attended that. It was a gorgeous day. Daily Grind provided food for purchase. That turned out quite well. On September 6th was the 6th grade social event. It was an ice cream event over at Artesian Park. That went very well as well. As Ms. St. Clair had said, on 9/16 was the kindergarten ice cream social. Apparently parents and kids stayed and played until about 7:30 at night, so that was a big hit. We are in the process of the directory. We have pretty much assembled all the data. We provide the directory in two ways. One is an app on smartphones, which is called the A to Z app. That is being uploaded after Friday, and then we will also have a print copy. One copy is available to every family as well as every staff member in the school district. We are hoping to have the print copies ready by around October 1st. On 9/9 and 9/10, LBES Book Fair is taking place. Something new this year, which we're really excited about, is that the Lake Forest Bookstore is now providing all the books. So we have moved away from Scholastic. We're trying this out. It's our first time doing this. We're really excited. It's going to provide a whole array of new titles that people can choose from. So we're looking forward to great participation there. But that coincides with parent-teacher conferences. And then that next following week is going to be Pumpkin Fest and Pumpkin Chase. Rich Martin is really trying to take Pumpkin Chase up a notch. He's doing a lot with Facebook, with the social media aspect of things. He would like to get 750 runners participating as opposed to 500 from last year. And then with Pumpkin Fest, we're keeping much of it the same. It's just going to be a little bit shorter on Saturday. So we will stick with the kickball game on Friday afternoon, followed by pizza dinner, carnival. That will go to about 9 o'clock. And then after that, on Saturday morning, it will start from 9:30 and go to 11:30. So just no lunch, but there will be the same carnival games, a bounce house in the gym, that type of thing. So we hope that there's great participation. We'd love to see you.
I have a question, Anne. Will the haunted house, weather permitting, be in the forest area?
Yes, we will have the haunted forest after the
It's
pizza
there.
party.
All right, excellent, thanks.
Thank you. Now we're going to have Emily McBain will do the Alliance report.
Good evening, everyone. Great to see all of you. The Alliance is kicking off our 25th anniversary year this year with a brand new logo that we are in the process of unveiling. That logo was completed by Chantel Varco. She graduated in 2014 from Lake Forest High School, and she is a Lake Bluffer. So she came up with the original design, and she and her teacher, Carolyn Bielski, fine-tuned it, and that is our final product. That logo is currently being printed on new letterhead envelopes and donor cards, and then our marketing committee is working to put together some other materials to get that out to the community. Last year, we were thrilled to support $22,000 worth of grant requests from our teachers and staff. And this year, at this time, our teacher liaison committee is getting ready to get into the schools, meet with the teacher teams, and get the ball rolling on getting grant requests submitted for this year. We have 2 grant dates set for this year, one on November 11th and one on April 21st. So we look forward to meeting the teachers' needs, bookending the different parts of the school year. We are about to kick off our fall fundraising event. We have one fundraiser at this point. It is our letter that is mailed to all District 65 parents, former donors, district vendors, and local businesses. This year we've set a goal, $25,000 for 25 years, and we hope to meet it and surpass it. To acknowledge this 25th anniversary, we are in the midst of planning a simple reception on Wednesday, October 28th at 7 p.m. in the LBES multi-purpose room. The community will be invited to attend, and specific invitation postcards are going to be sent out to all former Alliance board members. We will have a display of grants over the last 25 years, and one of our former superintendents, Dr. Edward Noyes, who lives in Libertyville, who was the superintendent when Alliance was created in 1989, will be attending as well. So we're looking forward to a great year. We have an outstanding board that I'm really excited to be working with, and we'll keep you posted on what happens. Thanks. Thank you.
Emily,
Yes.
you said last your goal is to raise $25,000. What did you raise last year?
25. So we wanted, I know. There's
Pushing for excellence.
details behind why we set 25. We like the 25 and 25, and it feels good to go over it. But there are some other, in looking at our donors, we were being a little strategic with that goal. So we were just saying 25 for 25, but stay tuned. So. All right, thanks. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Yeah.
So moving right along, we're going to go to our, if there is a report, a Director of Finance and Operations CSBO update with Mr. Jay Kahn.
And while Jay is getting the microphone, if all of you could grab, you should have a pile of handouts. You want to grab the School Funding Reform Act, Senate Bill 16. It says Deerfield Public Schools because there's a template going around the area. Jay is going to educate us on one of the major impacts to our budget and probably our reserves that's come up. He and I both said, gee, they've been talking about this for years, and all of a sudden it passed the Senate and everybody thinks it's all going to go through. So one of the things we're going to need to consider is letting the community know via using the exact same template, only putting our numbers in as to what we're going to be losing. So we will discuss this at our October POW meeting. It fits perfectly with our projections and our levy discussion, but I'm going to turn it over to Jay just to give you guys the overall on it.
Senate Bill 16 is sort of the state re-looking at the funding formula, our current funding formula. Any state funding formula looks at equity of funding for different schools and has a component of local resources. And in this revamp of their funding formula, they are essentially shifting money from districts with high local resources to districts with lower local resources to redistribute the state aid. The two, as I said in my presentation, we have about 5% of our funding from the state. It's roughly $750,000 for next fiscal year. And the two portions of that they're looking at redistributing are general state aid and the special ed personnel reimbursement. And that's about $420,000 worth of funding. So that's the money that the district stands to lose going forward if the bill passes. This bill has a phase-in provision, so they don't take it all away in 1 year. You will feel 15% of that in the first year, and then 40%, 70, and then the full amount by the fourth year.
So right now we're looking at about 420.
So 420 is the total. So the first year, after 4 years, we would only see 36,000 of it roughly in the first year.
A lot of districts are publicizing this. DuPage has started. They are actually the ones that came up with the template that Deerfield has used. It's something that I would recommend we consider doing for our community, since we would be standing to lose up to $420,000. But that's something that we don't need to rush into. We can talk about it at our committee of the whole meeting.
Additional legislation that's out there is also deals with the shifting of normal pension costs from the state to the district. So that the teacher's pension right now is funded, a portion is funded by the state, a portion is funded by the teachers, and a small portion is funded by the district. And due to its significant level of underfunding, the state has, there have been proposals to shift the ongoing normal cost of that pension onto the school districts. That also has a phase-in provision. The net impact would be 7% of TRS salaries, which for our district would amount to $560,000, and that would be phased in at 1% a year. So 1% of that the first year, 2% the second year, and so on, till in the 7th to 10th year, depending on how long the phase-in goes, we would have an additional $560,000 of pension costs
So,
grown with salaries.
so between these two items, 7 to 10 years out, you're talking over $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million in
additional burden.
today's dollars, grown, in 7 to 10 years, whatever that.
So what is what drove this the fact that the rural districts are underfunded basically because of a lack of property taxes?
I think if you look at, in general, state funding formulas, there's a lot of lawsuits in many states regarding how fair the funding formulas are in terms of adequacy. Are you providing enough money to fund the basic state education? And then equity, am I giving the right amount to each district? And I don't know, there's one more, right? Equity, adequacy, and something else. And currently they're looking at this, at our current formula, and saying there are schools, and it's basically rural districts and lower income districts that don't have the level of local resources that we do. And right now the state does not bring in enough money to fully fund even up to their current formula, so they calculate the current formula and then they prorate it. And they just say, we only have enough to pay 80% of what the formula calculates. So they say 100% is what we think it costs to educate a student, but we're going to turn around and only give you 80%. And there are districts where a significant portion of their funding comes from the state, 40, 50, 60%. And when they get prorated, they have a huge gap in their budgets and they can't operate. So there's many districts right now who are having trouble making payroll and issuing short-term debt in order to meet their obligations. And so they're looking at the formula and saying, we don't think this is fair and we should think about redistributing it or recalculating it in a way that that those districts who have resources can, who don't need this money to survive, can go without and help those districts that are in need.
Now, we were instructed at a superintendent's meeting 2 weeks ago to make sure we run projections with the impact of both Senate bills in our projections. So that was somewhat disturbing to me because, as I said, we've been hearing, especially about the Senate Bill 16 concepts for years. Last year it went so far as they were meeting with all of us on a regular basis, and we said, if you're going to take away your money from Lake County, and especially some of the affluent districts, then what are you going to give us? And they seem very open to taking away some of the unfunded mandates. They said, give us 25 mandates that you would love us to eliminate, and we'll talk about it. Well, if you notice in Senate Bill 16, there's not one thing in there about that. We spent a lot of time giving that to them. So I'm very concerned that it's gained this amount of momentum. I do understand, though, from a state level that there are many districts every year that are having more and more problems meeting payroll. One is our local neighbor. So I think it's obviously have to do something, but this is going to hurt a lot of districts. So it's important that we look at the impact of this and talk about educating not only ourselves but our community on this.
If we put together a worksheet like District 109 did, the first part of what you're talking about, maybe it would make sense to do something similar on the pension reform stuff as well, to help explain that.
Doesn't the pension reform stuff feel a little bit like Chicken Little? I mean, I'm afraid that we sort of get pension reform fatigue because every once in a while we get all spun up and then we spin back down and then we spin up again, and you know what I mean? Like I don't know when the opportunity, when the time is really right to really ring that alarm bell.
Which is why you have, and I would agree with you, Sue. That's how I felt about Senate Bill 16.
Right.
Then all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, it passed the Senate and this is gaining momentum.
What I think perhaps would be interesting is that, and I can advocate the state position really well too. It may be, I think that we should push, perhaps we can all contact our local representative and say, this unfunded mandate, and God knows that, sitting on this board, that's what you discover. There's a ton of unfunded mandate that, they have to go. And perhaps you could communicate that list that was created by superintendent. And we could say, we're not going to give you hell about this, but the unfunded mandate have got to go. And those are, a list of top 20. I think that, at least it's worth giving it a shot.
Does such a list exist at present?
We did turn in a list from our Lake County group. It was headed up by the Vernon Hills Libertyville superintendent, Prentice Lee, who is very active with legislators. I do not have a copy of the list, but I know that the legislators do because we gave it to them. So I can get my hands, I'll just email Prentice to get a list of what we've turned in. I do think we have to do our projections with both because we need to be cautious. I do think that we need to consider, in fact, I'll have Jay work up using the exact same template with our numbers, this information on the Reform Act from Senate Bill 16, and I'll leave it up to all of you if you want to share it with the community or not. But I do think it's important, and we're all using the same template, so the information is consistent from district to district.
Very good. Yeah, I'd like to see the list of unfunded mandates if you can get your hands on it. That'd be
I'll
interesting.
send him an email.
Right, perfect, thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? We have tonight a placeholder in our agenda for Kevin on occasion will give a report on student services, technology, and assessment, but I don't think we're doing that tonight. We're going to move on and then hit you in a couple minutes. Moving right along to the President's report, which I do have, and it will be brief. If I can find it. I have 4 topics to touch on. The first one is just to show appreciation to 3 of our board members, Julie Gaccio, Leanne Charlot, who's not here, and Susan Ryder, for all the work they've done on the policy, bringing the board up to speed on all the policies that we needed to bring our policy manual up to date on. And I think after tonight or after another reading, we are up to date. And so thank you. There's a lot of work and we appreciate that. The second thing is I want to let everybody know on the board and at home and in the audience that on behalf of the board, John Marsden and myself have asked Jean and the administration to collect and analyze historical district enrollment and staffing data so that we may better understand the factors driving these trends. We're going to use the ECRA group to do some of that analysis for us, and we'll be presenting these findings at an upcoming board meeting, probably in December. I wanted to publicize that this Thursday evening, there's going to be a tri-board meeting where representatives from the school district, from the village, and the park district will meet. This week it's at 6 p.m. at the golf course hosted by the park district, so if anybody here or at home wants to know about that, I will be there, and members from the other boards as well. And then finally, I need to talk about what's now being known as the Lake Bluff Knollwood Volunteer Leadership Program. And this is a project that you have the executive summary in front of you. This was put together with support by a person in the community who's very active in our community named Ann Sorensen. She also sits on the District 115 board. She's a Lake Bluffer, along with work with the Charm Foundation and support from the Village of Lake Bluff. And you have the executive committee. I had a couple of email exchanges with Ann today, and she said, to put it simply, it's a group of current and former, they're looking for a group of current and former Lake Bluff Knollwood volunteers to guide a group of interested newer residents or volunteers through the history, story, and volunteer opportunities that exist in our own town and neighborhoods. It's meant to be an introduction to options, to our culture, and a welcome and invitation to join what makes our town great, volunteerism. And when I thought about it, I said almost the same thing. I said the purpose is to raise awareness of volunteer opportunities in the community and to identify, recruit, train, and perhaps mentor a pipeline of volunteers for various community service and volunteer positions in the community. So Ann is kicking off this committee. There's going to be representatives from every board in town. I'm not sure when it starts, but not too long from now. And we need to identify a couple of people who would like to who'd be willing to sit on that board and help her kick off this volunteer committee. It's not a volunteer committee.
At least.
It's a committee of volunteers to recruit and mentor future volunteers, to bring, especially particularly younger, newer families to the community, to help bring them up through the ranks, to get them involved and to do the kind of things that we do. So, if anybody has any time, would like to
They
raise
can always
their,
get back to you.
they can get back to me. We're not going to spend a lot of time debating it tonight, but we'd love to see somebody involved in this from the board. And you can email me if you don't want to talk about it tonight. Silence is deafening. Okay. Moving on, going to the superintendent report with Dr. Jean Sophie.
I have 3 actual board meeting topics. The first one is the school board conference, which is really known as our III, which is a combination of Illinois Association of School Board Officials, Illinois Association of School Boards, and Illinois Association of School Administrators. Their conference is in the city November 21st through 23rd. We need to know who will be attending this year by the end of next week, which I think is October 3rd, so that we could cancel any hotel rooms, and we did book a couple just in case anybody wanted to attend. John and Mark attended last year and could answer any questions, but please know I need to know who will be going so we can cancel rooms if we don't have people in those rooms.
I'm in.
The second thing I wanted to mention is on October 30th, there's an Illinois Association of School Boards Lake County Fall Division meeting in Round Lake. And speaking at that will be Paul Tim, and he is talking on improving school security. Now, Paul Tim is the one that did our actual security report that we've kind of held off on until our new architect is hired. So you will probably be seeing Paul at some point anyway. If you would like to attend that, please let me know as soon as possible so we can get registered for that. Right now, I don't have anybody attending that. And finally, Mark and I reviewed the board meeting schedules and dates. And we are a little bit ahead in our work, a lot thanks to our policy committee in getting us all caught up. And in review and due to some other responsibilities, I will be recommending next month that we'll be canceling our November 4th committee of the whole meeting. I know that several of you are very much opposed to doing that, but I will be recommending that we cancel the November 4th COW meeting, and then we have to vote on it.
Rich looks all broken up about it. I don't know if we can do that.
So that concludes my report.
Any questions from me?
If I could add, I just thought about this. Last week, the village approved the preliminary PRD for Stonebridge, which means that it was a major hurdle and it passed. How relevant is it? Right now, we're not collecting a lot of real estate tax from Stonebridge, but the projections, once the development is fully developed, is that it's going to be about. I'm doing this from memory, so don't hold me to it too much, but it's like $750,000 coming in. But that would take a while to be phased in.
I think it might be helpful in the next meeting or two to have some more information about it, about exactly the kind of things that you're talking about, what the current proposal is. I don't.
Well,
what
you can't. There was
density might be. I just feel like I don't have really very much information about it.
So 98 units.
Pardon me?
98 units, and
98.
restoration of the mansion, and conservation easement in the front with.
For planning purposes, I'm not suggesting that we're going to change anything. I just feel ignorant about it.
You can also catch it on Channel 19. But you know what? Peter Kite, and maybe he can, prepare like a slide deck, so you would have a sense of, what it is.
Just how long is the phase in? How does it impact our planning, right? If we
And projections.
right?
We're talking about that.
I don't have a sense if it's 20 years or 5
Well,
years, if it's 2 years.
It was preliminary approval, so that may be difficult to give you a hard timing, because the entitlement process going through the village takes a while, and there's a review by the ABR, there's review by architectural review board, there's historical preservation review. They come again in front of the PCZBA. They have to go in front of the village. So that entitlement process probably is going to take a while. So he may not be able to tell you this is when we're going to start doing.
No.
But she has a good point, because there's been so much shift in thinking here that some people are confused and don't even know where it stands today. I've talked to a couple in the past few weeks. They thought it was still for over 50s, and that's changed.
Right.
So I think it would be good to have some sort of update, not only for us, but for the rest of the community, to understand exactly where it stands today.
And if what you're saying is that the best place to get that update is through the village board meetings rather than this meeting, that may make sense.
Well, no,
Just
but
wondering
probably
if
we can get from the developer some of the slides that were presented at PCBCBA, in particular the fiscal projection, which would be of great interest to us for planning purpose.
This is something we can bring up at the tri-board meeting too, when Mark and I are going on Thursday. It would be a great thing to discuss there, to find out how we can find out more information and when, and because it does impact our projections.
Right.
At some point.
Revenue.
I'm sure that I don't know how the developer would feel about it, but I'm sure he would be willing to come and present it to this board. I don't want to presume that it's a done deal either, you know what I'm saying?
What is the next action step by the village?
It's going in front of the village. It was a positive recommendation from PCZBA. So they're going to forge ahead, and what they're going to do is a series of workshop or charrette, very similarly to what they did with Target, where they're meeting with ABR and PCZBA, and they're working out all sorts of detail that have to do with setbacks, widths of streets, and all sorts of technical elements.
Chris, just for my sake and for everybody else, what is PCZBA?
I'm sorry, Plan Commission, Zoning Board of Appeal, which is one commission. ARB is ABR, Architectural Board of Review. Historical Preservation is the last commission, and it's but it's right now we are really not. I think that the tax bill for Stonebridge is about $78,000 or something like this for village and school and everything, and the projection that I've seen that were confirmed by village consultant were around $750,000. Once it's fully done. Now, when will it be fully done? It depends on the market, velocity, you name it. So.
But how far away are we from having it make a material difference in our planning? A year, 2, 5?
I'm guessing.
See, that's why it's important for us to get some information.
There's also something called impact fees. Which would be also a substantial chunk of money going into the school.
So Mark and I will bring it up at this week's tri-board meeting and see what we can find out.
Just get a timeline.
Right.
Rich, would you like to join us and ask at the tri-board?
We need our alternate.
Christine can't go.
If you can go.
Thursday night.
It's like Thursday night.
I get the trifecta Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
I'll send you the
6
information.
o'clock, I think.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Chris. We're moving on to 7, discussion items, and Board Goal 1, we're going to now have Dr. Kevin Rumstein and Ms. Kelly Bay present to us Board Goal 1, which is about maximizing the academic achievement and personal growth of each student. They will provide a summary report on student growth from the 2013-2014 school year, as well as ISAT scores that we just received.
Yes. Thank you so much. In front of you and in your board packets this evening, you have a much lengthier report that you can review at your leisure. Kelly and I just wanted to hit on some of the high points, and there were many of them this year. So as we wanted to just talk with you a little bit about Board Goal 1, maximize the academic achievement and personal growth of each student, and give you some updates on that. So first of all, we talked in the spring about the assessment audit that we did during the last school year. State assessments are shifting during this current school year to the park assessment, which Julie got to learn a ton about on Saturday afternoon at our Common Core event held by the League of Women Voters. And we have shifted our universal screeners for grades kindergarten and 1 to a new assessment called the STAR. And that has been going well, and our students in grades 2 through 8 take the math assessment 3 times per year. There are several other district administered assessments, including a new benchmark writing assessment that we have put into place during this current school year. The STAMP assessment, which is an assessment related to world languages, and then the COGAT, which we have tentatively slated to give to our second grade students during this current school year, and that will remain to be decided until the parent group and the working group around gifted and enrichment programming needs to sort of determine what placement will look like for that and what assessments will be used.
We this week actually last week began some consortium work with Lake Forest District 67 and 115. And so we started to just begin some conversations centered around supporting student learning, instructional practices across the 3 districts, as well as assessment. So we're going to start to talk about how we can share this data sort of in mass. We want to point out, just to note, that student record level data will not be exchanged either way between us and Lake Forest High School. So student-specific information. We can talk about mass data and aggregated data, and that's really where our conversations are going to begin, to kind of look at the data and really have some productive conversations about curriculum, instruction, and assessment by district.
One other big change and update for us that we may have mentioned in the past is that at the state level, Illinois was finally granted their waiver for the mandates under the No Child Left Behind Act. What the state had to do to get that waiver was put into place a series of guarantees about things that we would and would not be doing. So, for example, one of them is the teacher evaluation system. That's one of the guarantees that we had to make, that we would have a teacher evaluation system that is rooted in research, and that by the 16-17 school year that we would be including student growth measures in our performance evaluations, and that's actually the thing that held it up, is because the federal government wanted the state to push that up a little bit to the next school year where we were going to have it in, and that was not something that the state was willing to budge on. In granting the waiver, that means that you will no longer hear the term adequate yearly progress. So AYP is it used to be the thing that everybody looked at, and so that is no longer. What's that?
But could never achieve.
But could never achieve, and so that requirement that every school district and school make adequate yearly progress is gone. There are no requirements either for, you will recall that in the spring we approved the middle school's Rising Star Plan, which was a school improvement plan. So there are no more requirements to do that for the state. We will still, because it is good and best practice to work through a school improvement plan and a district improvement plan, we will still do much of that. We will just not be documenting it as thoroughly as the state required us to do it. It was a pretty rigorous process that our teachers at LBMS and LBES began working through years ago. The other thing that changed is, and this is a big shift in the conversation, is that we are able to focus on student growth as opposed to the status. So you'll see as we walk through the data, status would be how many students met or exceeded the state benchmarks. That would be an example of a status report, versus how many students made growth during the last several years. And that is something that we've been growing steadily internally, we know that, and we finally have the data to prove it, and it will be published with outside database. So that's something that's really exciting. So as we look at growth, we are really excited for several reasons. In your board report, you have the full summary from ECRA, where they talk about our growth. And I want to talk with you a little bit about how we get those scores. ECRA takes every single student record and they analyze the scores for that student. So they will take a score for Kevin Rubenstein, the last 6 of them. They will project out where Kevin is supposed to be 1 year from now based on Kevin's historical data and other students who are just like Kevin all across the state and country. They can then, so they project it out for a year, and then they compare that with where Kevin actually was a year from that point, and are able to then measure the growth, the value-added growth between where Kevin was supposed to be and where he's actually at. So you can imagine that if you can aggregate that for, if you can do that for one student, you can then do it for a group of students and a classroom and a school and a district. So you can start to figure out how our district has grown over the course of the year and how various subgroups have grown over the course of the year. So to start out with, our reading scores had statistically significant growth. Statistically significant would mean outside of the average growth range, and we had that in 2 areas for reading. Our grade 6 students did that, and then students who had 2 or more races. I don't want you to think that we didn't make expected growth, because under the green column you'll see that District 65 as a whole, Lake Bluff Elementary School, the middle school, all of the other grades, and all of our other subgroup populations made the expected growth. The only group that had lower than expected growth was in our RTI subgroup at LBMS.
We're talking about
Response to intervention. So it's a group of students that we would expect to be growing much quicker, that for some reason in the reading programs that they didn't grow as much as we would have expected them to.
So Kevin, reading the materials provided by ECRA, what I gathered, and I want to make sure that we're talking about the same data here, I gathered that expected growth varies by child.
Expected growth varies by child, yes.
Some children might have had a 10 expected growth based on their prior test results. Other children might have had 8. Other children might have a 6.
Absolutely. That's
And
right.
so the expected growth is not a fixed number, and our children are comparing it.
It is not a benchmark. It is not a benchmark. It is the same as taking an expected growth score for each one of you and then aggregating it to the board. So we would get a score for each one of you, and then we would get a score for the board.
That'd be an interesting exercise.
That would be very high.
It would be extremely high. I'm sure it would be higher than expected.
Now
So,
I'm getting all.
MAP makes sense because the MAP numbers haven't changed, the scale hasn't changed, it's always, it's been the same for as long as I've been paying attention to it. But ISAT significantly changed last year in terms of their scale, what was considered meeting. So how, I guess, maybe it's neither here nor there, but it seemed hard for me to understand how we were able to compare year over year ISAT scores.
what changed for ISAT was the benchmark, was the level of score that was required for our kids to meet or exceed state standards. What did not change is the
Scoring itself. Okay.
So we can still compare apples to apples.
And it was actually more difficult. So our kids still met expected growth, even though the benchmark went up.
Yeah.
But expected growth is a function of the pool of students,
That
correct?
we had for each student.
Right.
Expected growth is
It's
a
an aggregate.
function of, yes, the pool of students that we had. They're comparing our students to our students, and then really our students to, they would take Christine Letchinger's score and they would compare if you started.
Don't go there, Jim.
If you started at the top end and you were projected to grow by 10 points because they know that you have been growing at that rate for about the last 3 years, and they also know that where you started from, all of the other kids who had that same score, both in their ECRA database and in our student system, that they grew by approximately 10 points, then we can reasonably forecast that that's about the growth that you'll make.
Oh, wait, so it's an extrapolation.
So if the person wasn't here before, and we don't have their prior data, are they thrown out of the analysis altogether?
No, because what they would do then is that they would take, it's whatever are the last 6 scores that are in there. So we collect a lot of data right from the very beginning. So from the start of the school year, we give them our MAP data. We can send them their ISAT data from their old districts. We can send them whatever other state assessments. We've given them our access scores, which is an assessment for English language learners. We give them every bit of data that we've got in there so that they have as much as they can to make the growth comparisons.
But is it possible, let's say, is it possible to say that, Chris is a terrible student and we're suddenly getting into the Lake Bluff system, a bunch of Chris's. Therefore, the growth rate, the aggregate growth rate goes down, correct?
Chris is a
Terrible student.
Is a terrible
So
student.
there's a whole bunch of Chris's.
And there are a whole
And
bunch
I was
of
cloned.
not so good students who are moving into the district. Then our growth rate would slow over time. Yes,
Are expected.
Okay.
our expected growth.
Our expected
Yeah.
picture is where the
Exactly.
inflation was causing them to grow exponentially, then I think the growth.
Right. Sort of somewhat relatedly, I think,
Yeah,
expected
higher
growth for Lake Bluff, I would imagine might be higher than the expected growth for other school districts. So there may be a lesser school district that would also have expected growth, but our students, in fact, in our school district would have grown even more.
Yes,
Both
Charlotte Green.
that is
Okay.
correct. Which is later on you will see that as we talk about math and our growth there. We are going to do our hardest work to have a repeat performance this year with our students, but it's going to be really hard to outdo the scores that we had from this last school year.
Right. Okay.
We had some really outstanding growth.
Good.
Okay. So this is probably the more traditional way of looking at our scores. So this is the status scores. And as Kevin gets it up there, you can see along the bottom that we had I think a lot to celebrate, really, when we can see that the number of students that are meeting, exceeding in reading from last March is quite impressive. So even with those benchmarks changing, we still have a lot of success here in Lake Bluff related to the status of students that met or exceeded in grades 3 through 8. This next one is looking at the growth, or the percentage of students that met or exceeded from the 12-13 school year to the 13-14 school year. So along the left-hand side, the blue representing 13-14 and green representing the 12-13 school year. At the very top there, our Lake Forest class of 2018 would be the 8th graders, our last year's 8th graders. And so we can see that some of the grade levels may have taken a little bit of a dip, where others we can see some growth in terms of meets and exceeds from the year to year. So that may be an impact of that benchmark changing, and I think other factors could have created the dips.
So here we're not looking at growth, we're looking at status.
Status.
Because we're required to report that to you.
Status, right. And we're people so used to looking at that.
So as we look at math, which is a much brighter picture, we have a lot to celebrate here as a district. As ECRA was in the spring, when we started to get some of these data back internally, I said to Jean, I think that our scores are going to be really high. I think that our math growth is coming in excellent. It was exceeding like my internal benchmarks that I was looking for as it was coming in. And then when ECRA was working with us over the summer and giving us this information in the report that you have this evening, they were really remarking about the level of growth that they saw in this district. A lot to be proud of, and not repeated in very many, if any, other districts that they work with.
So what you attribute it to?
We have worked hard as a district over the last several years to realign every bit of the work that we do with outstanding mathematical practices. Part of that is related to the Bridges curricular materials that we are using at the elementary school, and part of it is related to the Agile Mind curricular program that we are using at the middle school, and then outstanding teacher practices that we have been working with our teachers on and our consultants on, and in a lot of different ways with everybody else on all throughout this. These scores would not be possible if we didn't have things like Janice Heigl coming in and working with our teachers several times a year. Janice Heigl, a nationally recognized consultant, internationally recognized consultant, we should say. She is speaking in Colombia and Tunisia, and she's invited us. So Janice Heigl. Then on top of that, things like the Summer Math Academy, things like the Summer Algebra Academy, things like some of our response to intervention groups that we've really targeted math over the last several years. Math is really an area that we have so much to be proud of. As you look up here with District 65 overall, the elementary school, the middle school, nearly every grade level. I highlighted grade 4. They had the highest growth out of all of the subgroups in every area. Grade 4 had the most growth last school year. Really quite statistically significant. Our Asian students, African American students, Hispanic students, white students, 2 or more races, our IEP subgroup, which has not been seen in the past, low-income subgroup, and ELL subgroup.
Just to clarify, so for example, when you say the grade 4 group, that's the cohort that was in 3rd grade last year and is now in 4th, or
that's the cohort that's now in 5th grade.
Okay.
You know, the other thing to point out, because Chris asked a good question, what did we do? When you look at the difference between language arts or English and math, it's obvious that we have the right things in place in math. We have to be doing the exact same things in language arts to build the system. And we've started on that. We're really getting the pieces in place. But that's where you see the difference between math and reading.
And we've got a lot of recognition for this, because I know Lake Forest has seen how well we've done, and they've adopted the Agile Minds program that we
They are, yeah.
We have a little, some of the teachers are using Agile Mind. I do know that they are increasing the number of grade levels and the supports in place to support the teachers with bridges, even K-5. And I know some of our teachers are even working with their teachers to provide some coaching and support and training and sort of.
Because they brought it to my, I meet with their board president and at high school as well pretty regularly. They brought that to my attention that they had their eye on our program for a while.
It's pretty fantastic. It's a lot to celebrate, and I think the teachers are up for that challenge, and they want to celebrate the hard work that they've done and are willing to contribute to other districts.
You just raise the bar, though. You know, once you raise the bar, you got to keep it up.
Yes. Well, I would say after the second edition of Bridges coming in this year, it certainly has raised the rigor, and they are continuing to challenge themselves as educators, and then in turn challenging the students. So,
I think one of the things that we didn't get a chance to really extrapolate on this on Saturday at our Common Core event, but you would be well served to go into a second grade classroom, to a kindergarten classroom, first grade classroom, to see the level of math problem solving that they're doing. So the brief example that I will give to you is a second grade classroom, third day of school. The teacher is asking every student to find a way to get to the number 4. And so, of course, second grade students, they start out with some of the easy things, the 2 plus 2s and the 1 plus 3s and that sort of thing. They move on then to the multiplication problems, then the division problems and the way to get to 4, and then the problems with exponents and decimals and that they get to 4. I mean, honestly,
In second grade.
in second grade, highly impressive work, like no effort at all from our kids. Our kids are sitting there, everybody's raising their hand, everybody's engaged, the teachers got them, working very, very hard, and it is just a very different classroom experience than I know that I certainly experienced, and that would mean that it's a very different classroom experience than most of us in this room experienced from high school. So Kelly's going to talk a little bit about the status.
So again, this more traditional graph reporting out our meets and exceeds. Again, a lot to celebrate here, large percentages of students at each grade level that were performing within the meets and exceeds areas. And then again, we have sort of the year to year from 12-13 to 13-14. And this, I think, is really, the slide speaks for itself, highlighting growth in just about every grade level, and I think, as Kevin used, significant growth. There's some, I think, ranging. We've got about 8% growth all the way up to 12% even at the.
What happens
class.
in 2023, or is that just a?
So our class of 2023 would have been the third graders last year, and that was their first year of taking the exact. So we don't have any data to compare that to.
So that's really an invalid number to begin with, 81%.
It's their benchmark.
It's
their starting.
So next year we'll be able to see.
This is a status. This is not a growth
Right.
chart.
We're switching back and forth because we want to show the growth, because that's more important to us, because it's more than a snapshot in time. But we're also required to report out on status.
And I guess I'm using that word grow from what is the status from 12-13 to 13-14. So that's my error in sort of throwing that growth in there.
Right.
So as we look at subgroup performance, again, these are just status. So for students with disabilities, reading and math, those are pretty comparable to where we were at about a year ago, the status, and one of the reasons why we are so excited that we're able to look at the growth pieces.
But roughly how many students are in this group?
There are, who are assessed, roughly 60.
59 IEP.
Yeah. And then limited English proficient, ISAT scores, reading and math, and these scores are relatively stable from last year to this year. There are a lot of individual celebrations as I looked at reading. the kids who were exceeding. It was kids who just really last year had a breakthrough year. I mean, really a lot of great things to celebrate individually for kids that it's exciting for their teachers to see and for their parents to see and for the kids themselves to see how much they have changed over the course of the year.
The numbers in that subgroup is what, roughly? Like LEP? Is that LEP?
Yes.
22.
Okay.
Answer my question.
And then students with economic disadvantages, again, relatively stable with the exception of our math, which went up rather significantly. So, as you know, from the spring, we have a dashboard on the district website, which displays just quick and accurate information about the percentage of kids that are in different areas. So our ISATs meets and exceeds will go up this year from 82% where it was last year to 86.8% this year. And then our ISAT exceeds will go from 33.5% to 38.6%. And that is the first thing that Jean asked me about. We get these results in a horrible format in the middle of July, and I quickly comb through them and then send them to Jean, and she couldn't read them on her cell phone very quickly. So she called me and said, where did our exceeds number go? And so that's where
Because that's one of our goals.
Exactly.
That we're responsible for.
On the dashboard. And then just future dashboard indicators, some things that Kelly and I have talked about with our teachers and others about the percentage of students on track to meet or exceed based on MAP and STAR data, national percentile comparisons for the district in reading and math as measured by MAP and STAR. We have a lot of national percentile comparisons for ISAT and that sort of thing, and so we really like to incorporate the MAP and STAR data into there much more because we have it for we will have it for every single student in the district, and then growth scores by group as we reported earlier.
One thing I don't see in there is statewide percentile comparisons, or even more relevant, regional.
Right. So the scores are, they continue to be embargoed until October 31st of 2014, at which point we will have the ability to compare our students to
and will
the
it
rest.
go on the dashboard or no? Future dashboarding?
We'll definitely, because we'll get the state numbers.
Yes.
We will only find out our neighbor scores by looking ourselves. All school districts are mandated, another mandate, to report to their boards and report to their communities by October 31st, and then everything goes public. So yes, we have a lot of work to do on our dashboard to show all the exciting news that's being presented tonight.
Great.
And then continue to focus on our vision. And Kelly and I would be happy to take it.
So I want to go in a second grade class because I think it would be interesting for me, since I teach a lot of class that have math component at the college level, and see if I could use some of that in my class because it has been a challenge, you know. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I will do
Absolutely. And they are, the thing that they are really focusing on, the pieces that they're really focusing on are the mathematical practices that need to be taught and instilled with kids, rather than the rote memorization pieces of the one way to get to an answer. And so that is why you'll see so many of our scores going up so significantly. We're not just teaching them how to get to 4 using 2 plus 2, though that's an easy way. We're teaching them several other ways, and so that's why it will take us a little bit longer.
The one thing I wanted to make a comment on, and we will not be going through it tonight because we have many other things to cover, is Kevin put together a really nice kind of cheat sheet for all of you that's at your tables. It's called Let's Look at Growth, and then the other side says ECRA Growth Reporting. And it really explains the propensity scores for the report that's in your board packets. And I think that's something nice for you to take a look at. It might hopefully make sense of some of the other reports that are in your board packet. But in general, I would say, and you guys did a nice job on the presentation, we're very, very excited about the growth, and our teachers have worked really hard, and they're very proud. And now we're taking a good look at reading and language arts. We have been for a couple of years. This is the second year we're really concentrating on that. So just great news all the way around, and reward all the wonderful work that's being done for kids here.
That is all good news. Yeah. Thank you. Good job on the kids too.
One question, one short question. Was there any reason for that anomaly with the 7th grade ISAT scores on reading? It was so significant compared to everything else.
Yeah.
So significant in terms of the rate that it grew or rate that it fell?
Negative 0.65.
27%.
Yeah.
Sure. So there are a number of factors that could influence score. Most notably, at 7th grade last year, at that time, the state tests were taken. We had a special education teacher who was out on leave. So there was some disruption there. We had a couple of other sort of pieces that were just falling into place there that didn't quite make it. We know that group of students, that's a group of students that we'll continue to take a close look at this fall as we get their MAP data back and their STAR data back to make sure that group of students really gets back on track.
It's really interesting because the reading scores is this negative value added growth.
Yes.
And then math, on the other hand, is quite positive in the blue for that same group. So
Yes.
anyway.
Shows us we have work to do.
Well, on top of that, but you see sort of the big question marks that all of us have then, because then we ask the same questions. Why is it that same group of students who excelled so much in math, why is it that their reading scores fell off? Why? And so then we start to extrapolate some other things there, and we can, sort of give our best guess, our best educated answer. But in the end, part of the challenge with an ISAC score is that it's one day in time.
Right.
If you have a bad day when you're taking that assessment, and that is
They had a
one of the pieces.
bunch of
But everybody
kids
has a
with
bad
bad
day.
days.
I mean,
You
it's
got
a
it.
collective bad day.
It's interesting because it's on all the propensities. The lower propensity, that's negative. The average propensity students, that's also negative. Higher propensity, also negative. It's just,
So they take the reading and math on a different day?
They do.
Sorry.
Maybe the
Sometimes
weather
it
was
means
better.
we have to rework some curriculum
it's
too.
interesting. Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to think about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was interesting, thanks.
Kevin is going to go ahead and put the 5 essentials, which is a very short presentation with even more good news. As soon as we're
So
done.
we've taken this 2 years in a row now. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
And we're just going to go through this, and Kevin, I'm just going to say change. If you could move to the next one. This is actually on the State Board website, so I think it's important. It says the State Board has long recognized that test scores alone do not provide the full picture of teaching and learning in any one school. So again, that teacher evaluation bill, which was Senate Bill 7, Tara, along with that bill came the fact that now the State Board is mandating another mandate on an every other year basis to implement a learning condition survey that will finally help paint that fuller picture. And then while this survey really helps inform state policy and improvement, it's really designed to help all of us look at the 5 essentials, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, identify strengths and weaknesses in our district, and try to make them better. Because we all know, in fact, if you look at the next slide, researchers at the University of Chicago have actually found through research that schools that are strong on these 5 essentials, which I'm going to be talking about, are very likely to improve student learning and attendance year after year. Furthermore, schools that are strong on at least 3 out of the 5 essentials are 10 times more likely to improve student learning. So when the teacher evaluation part was mandated, this climate survey was also mandated. And then if you look at the next slide, this gives our history that Susan just talked about. All schools in the state of Illinois were mandated to give this in the spring of 2013. We gave it to teaching staff, students in grades 6 through 8, and it was available for parents. And if you remember, we commented, our admin team sat down with the results, we set goals, we did all that. And then in August, everybody came out and said, oh no, well, we normed versus Chicago Public Schools, and all the other schools in the state said that wasn't a good norm. So really your scores aren't that meaningful. We're going to re-norm them for you. So everyone just kind of put them off to the side. Last year, it was not mandated for us to give the survey, but it's a free survey, and we feel like once we start using it, we can actually use the data to improve. So we went ahead and gave the survey again last spring. So now we have comparison data since it was renormed, and that's what I'm going to be presenting on tonight. They give an overall score, and there are 5 categories. So schools for Lake Bluff Elementary School District 65 were found, on average, very well organized. So we received the top level for organization on the 5 essentials. Next one. These are the 5 essentials that they talk about: effective leaders, collaborative teachers, involved families, supportive environment, ambitious instruction. And within that, if you look at within the parentheses, it talks about all the different factors that are within the 5 essentials. So if you flip to the next screen, these are actually our results. In every single category, we went up. So in the ambitious instruction, our supportive environment, involved families, collaborative teachers, and effective leaders, we went up in every single category. Our goal, and we couldn't really define it when we did the strategic plan because it was still pretty wishy-washy from the state. I'd like to see all of our 5 essentials at 90% or higher. We have some work to get on that, but we're doing an outstanding job. If you flip to the next screen.
One question though, we don't have any way to benchmark that compared to other districts of the state, right?
That right now is normed versus school districts in the state that took it last year. Because not all schools were mandated to take it last year. We're mandated every other year to take it.
So so that's a percentile.
It's a norm, yes.
So does that mean that in the case of
it is a percentile.
Ambitious instruction, the red bar, which is at 80, that we exceed 80% of the districts in the state?
That means we're in the 80th percentile. So there's 20% that are doing worse than us.
Got it.
Or better than us, excuse me. So yes. But again, keep in mind, it's not mandated for all schools last year. So it's only school districts that took it.
And they self-selected to take it themselves?
Yes. Now here's another interesting part legally, state board wise. Many districts complained about the 5 essentials. So the state said, all right, well, we understand where you're coming from. So we're going to come up with a list of 5 or 6 different climate surveys you can give. So some districts may choose 5 essentials, some may choose other surveys, so I think the norms are not going to be as meaningful.
Yeah.
And that's another one of our decisions from our state.
So the best research will see how we compare to ourselves over time as opposed to... Yeah.
And other school districts that take it, again, knowing though that they'll have other choices. Because per law, we have to give some kind of climate survey every other year.
Can we select the schools that we use as our benchmark?
Absolutely.
So you could...
But we can't tell them which surveys to take.
Right.
No, but I guess what I'm asking is, if you take, can we select from a subset of schools that take the same as us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's something that we'll do once the data becomes more reliable. Next steps, we really need to celebrate. Both schools have looked at the data and they'll be setting 2 goals to work on from their 5 essentials. The admin team is going to be setting 2 goals based on this data. One of the things that in Palatine, when we won the Baldridge Award, we collected a lot of data and had a lot of surveys. And we really learned that you have to kind of explain what the 5 elements are to the staff. Because when they're taking a survey, if everybody is using common language for what supportive environment is or ambitious instruction, then everybody's actually filling out the survey on the same foundation level. And that's not something that we've done so far. This is just, okay, here's your survey, take it. So we'll be doing a lot more collaborative conversations on what does ambitious instruction look like with the 5 principles that are in there. And then we're going to wait for the state to give us the status on the 5 essentials test. Okay, and I think that was it. Any questions?
So, Jean, the only number that stood out to me, and I wonder what you think of this, is the 33, and I guess you said percentile, that we got on quality professional development. I take it, we think we could do a lot better on that.
Well, I'm speculating, but we really got some feedback on this on the professional development survey that Kevin gave last year.
Okay, good. Well, that'd be more meaningful than this big picture. So
Well,
that's good.
But in the feedback that we got to explain that is, instead of administration telling us what we need to be learning, involve us and ask us what we need to be learning to support that. So Kevin started that last year with the professional development survey, asking teachers, we have these goals going on in the district. Where do you feel you need the support in professional development? And my guess is that score will go up. But that was a number that stood out for me too.
I have a question regarding the 5 essential. Who takes the survey?
Good question. All of the staff takes it. Kids in grades 6 through 8, all the kids at the middle school. And it is offered to parents and strongly encouraged that parents take it. We had a much lower number of parents taking it this past year than the first year.
Well, that would explain why the administrators won't get as much ranking statistically. You know what I'm saying? Could be. And if depending on, let's say, most of your survey takers are instructors,
right,
or students, then you guys are.
The other thing I'd share with you that I think is very interesting, and I actually get the most from this, is the kids give very honest answers. So if I remember correctly, and Nate, you may need to help me with this, one of the areas was the kids don't think that some of the work is as challenging as it should be to them.
He was asking challenging questions.
However, they ranked very high the fact that they have supportive teachers and have adults that they can go to in the building and really feel respected by their teachers. It's interesting to me how kids assess, because they haven't been through the years of being an adult where so many things kind of cloud your judgment. They'll just directly answer the questions, and there really is a lot of good information we can get from every group that takes the survey. But I also know our parents get burned out from surveys. This is one we can really use to help us in our improvement efforts. So lots of great things to celebrate tonight. Can I move into the next one?
Absolutely.
So the final thing.
Unless anybody has any questions on any of this. So we'll move on.
We got it. We've been interrupting grouping, so.
The last sheet, which is actually kind of the strategic goals update, and it's a 1-pager. It has 65 down at the bottom. I just want to briefly mention to you, we've reported on what we can tonight on board goals 1 and 2.
Is this in a handout that you gave us?
It looks like it was in the
I know it's in
board
our
packet,
board packet, but I don't know if it makes
and it looks like this.
Yeah.
And I just want to briefly mention, and this is a good conclusion or summary, Kevin and Kelly really hit on many of the indicators in our board goal 1. The exceeds group, the subgroups, how did we do in reading, how did we do in math, growth. So we really hit quite a few of the board goal 1 report outs tonight. Board Goal 2 report outs, we have also hit quite a few of them. We have a couple left mid-year that we can report out on. Board Goal 3, we did a lot of the work talking about budgeting and reviewing our policy on fund balance. As we hire an architect and start working on our facilities plan, we'll really be hitting the mark on our Board Goal 3. And finally, our Board Goal 4 on communication is, that one was all reported out in June from Joe Cook. So we are very much on target and actually ahead of the game for report outs on our strategic plan this year also. And that's to all the great work that you've done and the great work that our team has done and our teachers have done. So thank you to all. And that concludes what we're doing. Anybody have any questions?
So before anybody, before we move into action items, do you want this?
I just wanted to mention our administrators. Nate's getting up early to leave for his trip tomorrow. Margaret, as you watch her hobble out of the room, is having some issues with, because she works out all the time, God bless her. So her knee is having some issues. So the building level administrators, I'm going to suggest that they go home at this point before we do our approvals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. A lot of good news.
Have a good time.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Action items with discussion. Agenda item 8A, approval of the 2014-2015 final budget. We've seen the budget 3 times, twice with preliminary numbers, now with the final numbers audited, the audited 2013-2014 numbers. We've had a lot of discussion. Does anybody have any further comments or questions before we go to a motion? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the 2014-2015 final budget as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Julie Gottschall,
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Christine Letchinger, yes. John Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
The motion is approved. We have a budget. That's good. Item 8B, approval of EIS report. I'm going to let Jean give us a 10-second rundown on that one.
All this is it's a required state report, a listing from the teacher service record for reporting on teachers, administrators, and other employees. It's mandated. It's also put on our website after approval from the board.
Anybody have any questions or comments or concerns about the EIS report? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the 2014-2015 EIS report as presented by the administration and included in your board packets?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please, Christine.
Julie Gottschall,
Yes.
Richard Haig,
Yes.
Chris Letchinger, yes. John Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes, motion's approved. Item 8C, approval of annual recognition of schools for 2014. I'm going to also let Jean give us an overview on this one.
This, again, is a yearly, based on a review by the state board and recommendations from our regional superintendent. Each school district and school in Illinois is given an annual recognition status. This is the report. We are fully recognized, and the board just has to approve the report before submittal.
Questions or comments? May I have a motion to approve the annual recognition of schools for 2014-2015 as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Is this going to cost us any money? No, right?
No, because it's just our
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 8D, approval of memorandum of understanding regarding part-time teachers. Let's see. Information on this item is attached board memo along with the actual memorandum of understanding. Jean, you going to summarize this for us?
There are many procedures that most school districts take every year regarding part-time teachers that had not been done in this district. In order to be fair to part-time teachers and fair to the school district, we wanted to make sure that everybody knew what their rights were, and it also helps us prepare for negotiation language for part-time teachers. So in February, we met with the teachers union and Terry Hodges talked about and really memorialized what had been done. And that is the letter of agreement that you've got here that covers our part-time teachers and their status for this year.
Does anybody have any questions about that letter of agreement? All right, may we have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding part-time teachers as presented by the administration and included in your board packet?
So moved.
Second?
There is dollars there, so I'm going to say, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Richard Hick,
Yes.
Chris Fletchinger, yes. John Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Judy Gotchall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Moving on. Approval of personnel report. This month, we have a personnel report which includes 3 individuals. A Jonathan Dwyer is being hired as a teacher's aide at the elementary school at $15 an hour effective August 21st, replacing Janet Holland. This is not a new position. A Melissa Pasquesi is being hired as a teacher's aide at LBES for $15 an hour effective August 21st, replacing Nell Ireland. Again, not a new position. And third, hopefully I will not hurt, Kugas McCallion as a teacher's aide at the elementary school for $15 an hour effective August 21st of 2014. Once again, replacing, not a new position, replacing Nicole King. So,
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
if you have any questions before I go for a motion.
I just want to note that both Nell and Nicole were here tonight, having been hired as teachers, right? That seems like a great success, that we were able to turn our teaching assistants who are familiar with the building, who we've seen work with our kids, into staff, into the full-time teachers. So that seems
Which is the way it should be, really.
right. Well, when it works.
Yeah,
the
farm system, exactly.
When you can make it work, it's terrific. So
It's nice because that part of the orientation as far as learning the organization and the teacher names and how things work is already done.
yeah. So that seems like a great win.
Okay, so can we have a motion to approve the personnel report that I just described for September 23rd, 2014, as presented by the administration and included in your board packet?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Chris Fletchinger, yes. John Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Judy Gotchall,
Yes.
Richard Hick.
Yes.
The motion's approved. Item 8F, approval of .1 FTE ELL staffing. So that's our English language learners staffing. Would you like to update us on that?
I'm going to turn that one to Kevin just to, he really has a well-designed memo that will be released tomorrow for the public.
So .1 means basically half a day
$4,700
per week.
in a year.
4,700.
4,800. I think we can swing that.
Do you want to just give us the highlights?
Did we steal your thunder? Sorry.
I outlined it in the memo, but over the last several years, our ELL population has increased quite dramatically.
Huge.
On top of that, it is a pretty diverse ELL population by standards of ELL, so it is not just students who are speaking Spanish. We're getting kids from all over the world, which is really exciting and adds a great deal of diversity, but it also stretches our programming options to the max. And so after reviewing the student numbers for this school year and looking at the schedule for servicing students, we're requesting 0.1 FTE increase for the ELL staffing that we have currently in the district. So this would bring it to 1.8 FTE total.
So we went from, in 2010, 35 ELL students to this current year, 80. Am I reading that right?
That's correct.
That's a big jump.
The jump between last year and this year is
It's
what
huge.
really
Yeah,
surprises me.
48 to 80.
So it is happening in a number of districts in the area. One of the things that happened when Abbott and AbbVie split up is that AbbVie is now hiring scientists from all over the world. We are, like I said, it's not just the sort of typical Spanish-speaking students who are coming to us. for short periods of time, it is families who are coming to Lake Bluff to settle here because their mom or dad are going to be scientists for the long term at AbbVie. So that's one of the big reasons. The other thing that we do know, excuse me, is that some of the apartment managers in Highland Park and Highwood that has another high ELL population increased their rents over the summer unexpectedly, and we had a number of families move to us very late in the ballgame, not predicted, very late in the ballgame being August 15th into the district.
Wow.
Impacting our numbers.
And you only need 0.1?
So it's cheaper to live in Lake Bluff than it is in Highwood? Is that what you're saying?
We have an apartment complex that had available spaces and was slightly lower in rent.
Now,
than
it looks
Highwood.
like there's an addition of 11 students in pre-K. Is that the addition of that program that has
It
led
is
to
the
rent
it is the
expansion?
addition of that program, and we are not mandated to service those 11 students in pre-K. It would not serve us well to not service those students. We're getting 2 full extra years in some situations with students who barely speak English, and so to have those 2 full extra years before they're officially on our books is going to serve us well in the long term.
How many hours a week does 0.1 FTE equate to?
It's a half a day each week.
Half a day, so
Yep.
4 hours.
So how do you get that? Does the person who spent 0.7 now become 0.8?
That's
Is that
correct.
how it works?
That would be the plan.
Yeah, hard to find somebody probably
For
for
the someone
half a day
does
with those skills.
these 1.8 people speak Ukrainian, Chinese, French, Mongolian, whatever else we got going on?
Well, so as we talk about unfunded mandates, in a perfect world, we would have somebody who speaks all of those languages somewhere on our staff. We don't. We have an outstanding staff member who speaks Spanish, which is the primary area of our population. And it's not required that you speak all of the different languages. By certification, it would be near impossible to find somebody. That being said,
a subgroup that was large enough that required.
that being said, and we do have that subgroup at Lake Bluff Elementary School where we are required to have a Spanish-speaking staff member to instruct them, and so
20,
we do.
is that sub 20 is the
And that's
threshold?
a subgroup of 20 students. So
That's another.
we are lucky that we had a group of 20 who speak Spanish, that in other districts in the area have a group of 20 who are speaking Mandarin Chinese. So attempting to
I would
find a-
suspect the AbbVie group would either be European or Asian, not
Correct.
Spanish.
Correct.
So that's probably a large, you alluded earlier to the fact that that's probably a large segment of the increase from year to year. So how are we addressing those languages?
the other languages that
European and
the-
Asian.
so when you are working with students who are English language learners, you are working on the basics of language skills. So you are focusing immensely on quick vocabulary that is going to allow them to access the curriculum the quickest way possible. So in the younger years or in the years where they are first beginning to access the curriculum, you're going to be working with them on their colors and their numbers and the alphabet sounds and all of those other sorts of basic language skills, and then building from there. Some of that will come along just by, naturally being in an English-speaking environment. Other pieces of it need to be explicitly taught, and so there's quite a bit of work that goes into this every single year, and it's really quite remarkable the increase that we've seen over time.
Changing place.
Absolutely a changing place.
Okay, any other questions? All right, can I have a motion to approve a 0.1 FTE addition in ELL staffing as presented by the administration and in your packets?
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Jenna Rosen,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes?
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Julie Cottrell,
Yes.
Richard Hay,
Yes.
Chris Letchinger.
How'd you vote?
Yes.
Motion is passed. Sorry. Item 8G, approval of policy for first read. Julie and Leanne, who is not here tonight, and Susan spent a lot of time going through this, and I wanted to, before we get into it, ask if they had anything they wanted to highlight on any of these policies that we need to, that they thought we should be aware of.
We think they did a terrific job.
By acclamation.
Are you ready to move to approve?
I'm sure they did. I just wanted to give them a chance to say something. So, if there's nothing we want to highlight, I would ask for a motion to approve the policies for first read, which include the 20 or so policies that are listed in your board packet.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Should it? Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mike Baird,
Yes.
Julie Gottschall,
Yes.
Richard Hay,
Yes.
Christine Lechinger, yes, John Morosi.
Yes.
The motion's approved. Similarly, item 8H, approval of policies for second read. These are all policies we've seen before. And again, are there any comments or commentary from our policy committee that they would like to bring to our attention? Anybody else have any questions or comments? Rich, I know you're dying to say something. No? Okay.
So moved.
That's what he's trying to say.
Does anybody
First, Richard Hay, second.
Can I have a motion to approve the policy for second read and adoption of these 20 or so motions, policies that are included in your board packet?
So
Second? Rich?
Second.
All right, everybody,
Roll call vote.
Mark Baird,
Yes.
Julie Gottschall,
yes.
Richard Hay,
Yes.
Christine Lechinger, yes, John Morosi.
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
The motion's approved. Moving on. Item 8I, approval of consent agenda. Tonight we are talking about minutes from the regular Board of Ed meeting on August 26th, 2014, closed session minutes from the August 26th, 2014 meeting, minutes from the committee of the whole meeting on September 2nd, 2014, our Pete card report, our bills payable report, our August treasurer's report, and our activity reports for the middle school and elementary school. Does anybody want to pull any of those to discuss in more detail?
No.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for September 23rd, 2014, as presented by the administration and included in your board packets?
So moved.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Julie Gottschall,
Yes.
Richard Hay,
Yes.
Chris Lechinger, yes, John Morosi,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
and Mark Baird.
Yes, motion's approved. Agenda 9, FOIA requests. I guess I need to highlight this. We got a FOIA request from a Lenny Girat of educationmatters.us requesting correspondence and documents related to current teachers in the union who have emails. There are emails regarding
Fair share.
Hudson rights, Beck rights, fair share fees. And Gene responded to that, gave him his response, took about an hour of our time. And is that all I'm required to say on the FOIA?
Yes.
Okay. So we have consent agenda for, we're good. Would anybody in the audience, Don, that's you, would like to address the board? Please feel free to do so now. If not, we will move on and adjourn the meeting at 9 o'clock. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Don't be shy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
9 o'clock.